Hello everyone, my name is Marko Karatic and I will be presenting you the work done for my thesis called Generative Approach to Creating GUI Layout Editor using Drag and Jump functionality. The goal of the thesis has been to make the website layout modifiable. In many cases, a website can benefit from users having the option to personalize and configure the layout that they desire. An example of the layout configuration would be putting more focus on more important elements, such as having those more important elements at the top of the website, or in general the user changing the layout to be more intuitive to themselves. The goal has been reached by creating a so-called graphical user interface layout editor, a feature that is added to a website that, as the name suggests, edits its layout. The requirements for this layout editor are, well, beside the ability to edit the layout, to be intuitive and easy to use for the end user, as well as provide the ability to save the layout for every page, load the saved state, as well as reset the layout to the default state. The ability to add or delete layout elements has not been a requirement. The layout editing has been provided using a drag and jump functionality. The drag and jump functionality is a feature that allows the user to select an object by grabbing it, dragging it to a desired location, and then dropping it. This functionality is a quick and easy to use technique that can invoke many actions, and one of them is most commonly being the repositioning of GUI elements. Okay, now let's go to the concept solution. The whole implementation done for the thesis is based on a generative model-driven approach powered by MontyGem. MontyGem is a framework that is used to generate websites. Now here is a simplified model of the MontyGem architecture. Okay, so one of its many features is the so-called GUI generator, which contains GUI models that are used to generate a web page, which contains then GUI elements. And the generated web page consists of HTML and TypeScript files. The web page uses DTOs to exchange data with backends. And DTOs, or data transfer objects, are objects that, as the name suggests, transfer data from frontend to backend and vice versa. The frontend establishes communication with backend using commands, which it sends. Those commands can also contain, DTOs as an additional information for the backend. The commands are managed by the command manager, which regulates the communication between both sides. When backend receives the information from the frontend, it uses the services called DAOs, or data access objects, to communicate with database and send data to database or fetch data from it. Also, if needed, the backend can use DTO loaders, which can take or fetch the data from the database using DAOs, transform that data into DTO format, and then send those DTOs from backend to frontend. Okay, so that is how different components of the MontyGem architecture interact with one another. And this interaction is used to save the edited layout from web page to the database, as well as load the saved state to the web page from the database. Okay, so now that we have the introduction out of the way, let's take a look at the final product of the thesis. Okay, so here we have a website which is generated by MontyGem mostly, and also can be partially handwritten by the developer. And here we can see two so-called cards. These cards are the so-called GUI elements, which are then generated by GUI models. These cards are set into each row individually, rows being also GUI elements. And the cards can have a heading and a body. And the body can have material as the developer desires, whereas the heading can have only text. Okay, so here as you can see, we can just normally just use the website, right? Nothing special. But if you want to edit the layout now, we have to go to the button here and activate the editing mode. Now here we have the three buttons. One for saving the current layout, one for loading the saved state, if there is any saved state, which now is not the case, or we can also reset the layout to default. Now we go through the layers. The layer 0 means that no layers is chosen. But if we go to layer 1, you can see now that some elements are marked. That is, the rows are marked with blue border, meaning that these rows are draggable. Yeah. If we go with the cursor to a row, for example, as you can see now, then the end user can see that this row can be now dragged. Now let's grab this row and pull it here. The yellow border means that the dragged object can now be dropped onto this object that is marked yellow. So we now release the mouse and voila, we have exchanged the positions of these elements. Now let's go to the one layer deeper, being the body and their elements. The black frame means that the draggable elements inside the black frame are only draggable inside that black frame, as you can see also here at the bottom. Now the question is, why do we have these so-called layers? Currently as it is, you can only edit the layout by interchanging sibling elements. And this is done to protect the user from destroying the layout by having a complete freedom of editing the layout. Also, layers are implemented so that if, say, an element is draggable, none of the ancestors of this element or descendants of this element are interchangeable, that is, draggable. This is done for the user to have a better overview of what can be edited in the layout, while at the same time not being overwhelmed by the animation added when marking the different GUI elements to aid the user in layout editing. Okay, so let's say we exchange the elements here. Now we go one layer deeper. As you can see here, we can now exchange these elements, right? And now we can see how the layout looks like. It's changed. And let's say now we want to save the layout. We get the notification at the bottom, right? And now, as you can see, we can load the saved layout. Yeah, it does nothing because the layout is now as it was saved. And now we can, of course, reset layout to default. That is, yeah, to the default state. And now we can, again, load the saved layout. Yeah. So that is how layout editing works. Yeah. Now let's look at one example of draggable elements being, well, draggable while you as developer don't want it to be draggable. So here we have an example. As we go here inside, you can see now that the navigation bar is draggable. This is an undesirable behavior of the website. Yeah. And for this to not be the case, what you have to do as developer is disable the draggability for this element when generating the website. Okay, so now we have generated the website again, but this time we have disabled the draggability for the navigation bar, which you can see now. Okay, so that is pretty much it, the final product of the thesis. Yeah. Thank you for listening and have a good day.